Hello everybody, it's me again. And for those of you who are just tuning into this video series that I have been doing for nigh on 3 years now, my name is Jack Wallen, and I'm here to talk about art. Not like the drawing or painting kind of art, because I'm really bad at drawing. Not art in general, actually. I'm going to talk about, well, writing. Because that's what I do. Because I'm a writer. I just finished my 50th novel the other night. I should have celebrated that, but you know, my idea of celebrating is just to go on to the next novel. So I was going to talk about something else today. And then I got my exercises in and I got in the shower. While I was in the shower, I started thinking about Eddie Van Halen. And that led me to think about Mozart. See where this is going? No, you don't. You should, if you've been paying attention long enough. I'm just kidding. There's no way you could know what I'm talking about. Okay. So when I was thinking about Eddie Van Halen, I started thinking about Eddie Van Halen's guitar solos. And how that if you listen to Eddie Van Halen enough, you start hearing the repetition of certain themes. Like the hammer and pluck method that he kind of invented or at least solidified in the annals of rock and roll history. And you can go through their entire canon of music and you can take out little bits and pieces. Oh, I remember that from this song, or I remember that from this song. And the same thing holds true with Mozart. You listen to Mozart long enough and you can hear repetitive themes. You know, you could just pick them out. Oh, I know that. I remember that. It happens to all musicians. The Fix. The Police. Every musician succumbs to it eventually. And it's not really succumbing to it. It's part of their way of communicating. And that's what I want to talk about right now. I'm calling it riffs. Or actually, I'm calling it riffs and repetition. Or something like that. But regardless, it's about riffs. And every form of art has them. Now, this mental thread from Eddie Van Halen to Mozart eventually came to me. And I started thinking, where do I fit into that? And I know for a fact that I have certain words and certain phrases and certain tricks and methods that I use in almost every book that I write. For example, there are a lot of times where I'll write out a paragraph or I'll cobble some sentences together in one or two paragraphs that actually form a very important part, an integral moment for a character. And then I'll artistically punctuate that moment with a single word. There's a reason for that. What I'm doing effectively is I'm putting a beat in there. Okay? Beats are really important. So there will be important paragraph, beat. Because that beat puts a punctuation on that moment. It doesn't put a punctuation on the end of a sentence, it punctuates a moment. And I do that a lot in my books. Because I want to help the reader know that what they just read might come back later, or it's just something that they need to know about a character. It is an important moment in that character's story arc. And there are certain words and passages that I repeat. I don't know them. I can't tell you what they are offhand. Now, as I'm writing a book and I write one of those words or passages, I'll go, aha, yes, I use that a lot. But it's apropos in this moment. So I don't stop myself and go, no, I can't repeat myself. I do. I allow that. Why? Here's why. When you're listening to a Van Halen song, yeah. Let's say you don't even know it's a Van Halen song. Say you only knew Van Halen as fronted by David Lee Roth. And then you hear a Van Hagar song. And you're like, is that Sammy Hagar? And then you hear Eddie Van Halen break out into a solo. And then he does his little hammer and pluck thing. And you go, oh yeah, that's Eddie Van Halen. This is Van Halen. Those things sort of act as a calling card. They tell you, the reader or the listener, that this is who you're listening to. This is who you're reading. It's kind of our way of letting you know this is us. This is my artistic tag, so to speak. One of the many artistic tags I use. Now, here's the thing. I don't intentionally create them. I don't go, let me piece together two really cool words to make an even more a cooler passage. And then I'm going to use that frequently in my work because I think it's cool. And I think readers will think I'm cool for using it. I don't do that. It just happens naturally. You can't force it. You can't force this any more than you can give yourself a nickname, because that's just uncool, right? Nobody gives himself a nickname. I don't even have any nicknames. I have pet names that my wife calls me. Some of them good or some of them are bad. But I don't have a nickname I don't have a nickname, period. That's not true. I have one friend that calls me Big Dummy. And that's okay, because I call him Big Dummy. Anyway, what was I saying? Yes. So you don't intentionally create these. You let them happen naturally. It is a very important artistic tool. And it's part of, and this is important, it is part of what makes your writer's voice yours. Now that doesn't mean you should be peppering your work with these leitmotifs throughout. You let them happen naturally. Don't overuse them, because if you overuse them, then you have a problem. I mean, we all have those things that we overuse and our editors go, nay, nay. But I have never had an editor, even after they've edited a number of my books, I've never had an editor go, okay, I'm going to stop you from using this from now on. Because good editors understand that those little phrases are part of what make you unique. And we need those things. Now, again, if you're listening to me, and I don't know if there's anybody listening to me, hello, is this thing on? Do not try to invent these for yourself. Let them happen naturally. Because if you invent them, they're inorganic. And everything you write should come from a place of organic nature. It should come from your heart and your soul. You know, one of the very last things you want to do, and I've known people that have done this, is you're reading a book, you're reading an article, whatever, and you go, ooh, I like the way those two words work together, or I like that sentence a lot. Next thing you know, those two words or that sentence find their way into the writer's new book. Don't do that. Do not do that. Don't. Just don't. Now, something else could inspire those. I have had, on a number of occasions, I've had a song that has inspired a passage for me, not lifted from the song, because that's illegal. But I have had songs, I've even had instrumental songs that have inspired passages for me. And I have written them down and said, I've got to use that sometime. That's okay. It's perfectly fine. Because that's not something you're going to intentionally use over and over again. That is not your leitmotif. That is not your calling card. But eventually it could be. I think there's one two-word combination that I used for a while, and that was universal void. I don't know why that stuck in my head at one point, but I remember thinking it, and the infinite void, not universal void, infinite void. Because those two words conjure up such imagery. And I don't remember what period of my writing it was, but I started using infinite void. I don't think I've used it since, but I know that there was probably 3 or 4 books that I actually used that thing in. And never once did my editor go, let's not do that again. Because they know. When you've worked with an editor long enough, that editor knows your tricks. And they know when you're trying to trick them, and they know when you're just trying to use your voice, the tricks of your voice. And those are two very different things. So, and here's the thing. We always hear this. we have other writers give this advice. Find your voice. Use your voice. Find your writer's voice. Spend the time to develop your own voice. But they never really actually tell you give you any advice on how to find that voice. Well, here's a little bit of how to find your voice. At some point in your writing, when you've written enough, you're going to start seeing these patterns repeat themselves. You're going to see phrases or word pairings that just you enjoy using, or that you believe express a very particular sentiment or emotion or whatever. When you discover those things, just let them happen and realize that that is kind of the universe saying, you're discovering your voice. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But like I said, you don't want to overuse it. And your editor will tell you if you do. But those riffs are yours. Embrace them. Just like Eddie Van Halen embraced his, and Mozart embraced his, and Cy Curnin embraced his, and Sting embraced his. They all do. As an actor, I know that there are certain things I do on stage that are uniquely mine. And I have used them in numerous shows before. And sometimes it's just a simple movement. Sometimes it's a way of saying something. Sometimes it's just a way of pausing. Which is a great way to define a beat. And that's one of the things that I do with those single word beats. Because sometimes when a reader gets into a flow, they're reading these paragraphs and paragraphs, and then they hit a single word, that beat, that end of that beat, it makes them pause. It's like blah, 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 bam. Blah, 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 blah. You see? So these riffs don't have to be word combinations or particular sentences or even single words. They can be a style in which you write that readers can pick out and know that it's you. That's one of the really cool things, I think, about spending as much time as I have as a writer, writing as many books as I have. You can hand one of my books to a reader that is familiar with my work. If you just give a couple of pages from a book of mine that they've never read, as long as they know my work, they can go, yeah, that's him. That's a Jack Wallen. That is an original Jack Wallen. It's just like you can tear out a page from a Shakespeare play and hand it to any actor. Even if they don't know what the play is, they can go, that's Shakespeare. Same thing with Moliere or Chekhov, Ibsen. All of the greats. I'm not lumping myself into that category. I'm just saying that when readers are familiar enough with an artist's work, they can automatically pick that work out without knowing that it is the artist. Because they've become familiar with their works, they've become familiar with their wordplay, and they know their riffs. Does that make sense? So don't fight them. Don't fight the riff. Embrace the riff. Lean into the riff. Just like Eddie Van Halen did. If Eddie Van Halen didn't lean into his riffs, he might not have wound up being Eddie Van Halen that we know and loved. Still love, even though rest in peace. Okay? That's my bit of advice for this week, people. Other than relax. Take a breath. It is stressful out there. It is stressful in here. It is stressful in here. Everybody's succumbing to all kinds of stress and pain, and sometimes you just have to breathe. Because if you don't, well, in the long run, you'll die. But if you don't stop to breathe and take a beat, that tension, that pain is just going to keep compounding until you can't take it anymore. So take a moment. Give yourself the opportunity to take a moment and take care of yourself. especially if you're an artist, because man, these last 2 years have been challenging. Anyway, thank you very, very much for taking the time to listen to me rant and rave, and hopefully inspire you with a little bit of knowledge or entertainment, whatever floats your boat. I hope that you get something out of this. Or if not, I hope that you've just enjoyed listening to me talk. Anyway, thank you again. I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful weekend or week whenever you listen to this. And know, every one of you, that you are awesome. Yes, I have a wrist brace on. Really sucks as a writer.